call to order the Hamilton County Council meeting for Wednesday, September 4th. Madam Auditor, may I have a roll call, please?
Brad Beaver.
Here.
Mark Hall.
Present.
Ken Alexander.
Present.
Amy Masalamani.
Present.
Sue Mackey. Present. Tim Griffin.
Present.
Steve Nation.
Present.
Madam President, you have a quorum.
Thank you so much. We'll now ask for the invocation and pledge of allegiance by Councilor Griffin.
Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we gather here this evening in service to our community. Guide our hearts, our minds to make wise decisions that benefit all. Grant us the grace to act with compassion, wisdom, and integrity. We've asked this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are you hearing that reverberation?
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought that was my device.
Well, I didn't. No, it's happening for sure. There, I think we've solved it. Perfect. Okay, moving on, we will now move to the second public hearing, resolution CC 08-07-2024.03, a resolution of the County Council of Hamilton County making a preliminary determination to enter into a lease agreement and making a determination of need for a public safety training facility project. Item A is the presentation of the proposed project and statutory preliminary determination information sheet.
Yes, good evening, Council. Thank you. As Madam President said, this was introduced at your last meeting. This is the second statutory required public hearing for the controlled project determination. After today, you will be adopting the resolution that is before you. At that point in time, we will not come back to you again until the actual land is secured. So by adopting the resolution tonight, it does not approve the authorization of issuing any debt. It just begins the public comment period for 30 days after today. And so at that point in time, once the land is secured and after the public comment period, we will come back to you with actual bond ordinances and then and other appropriate documentation. I know that I think Judge Nation might have had a question. It talks about lease in here. The lease that it is referring to is the lease between Hamilton County and the Hamilton County Public Building Corporation. So it is not a lease with a landholder where the project will eventually be, but just between the county and the Public Building Corporation. So with that, if there's any questions, comments, or concerns, I'm happy to entertain those. And Oscar Gutierrez is here from Bondry for any questions on the actual financing or numbers. And Zach Klutz will be here. Oh, there he is right there. If you have any hard questions, direct them that way.
Do you have an update on the status of the ground?
We received appraisals from the City of Westville just today. So we are hoping that we provided them all the information they requested a couple weeks ago, and now we are hoping to have another conversation with them. So we are appreciative that they got it to us, but it was I think we received it at about 1:34 p.m. this afternoon. And as you all know, we've been busy with budget hearings and the other such. So I can provide more update in writing and via email after we've had a chance to review those numbers and everything.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing and give the opportunity for any public comment to those in the audience. Seeing none, I'll move on to closing of the public hearing, and we will need a motion to approve resolution CC 08-07-2024.03, a resolution of the County Council of Hamilton County making a preliminary determination to enter into a lease agreement and making a determination for a need for a public safety training facility.
Make a motion.
Second.
Is there any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll ask for a reading and approval of the minutes for our joint executive session minutes from August 4th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. The joint meeting minutes from August 4th.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And finally, the council meeting minutes from August 4th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next item is public comments related to any items on our agenda. Seeing none, we'll move on to committee and officer reports. I have a couple of quick items. I will put this back in our chambers. It was a gift that was given for the $102 million related to 911, the project bonds. So I'll make sure that that is back there for the group to have. Additionally, we have an October 2nd executive and joint session at 5 p.m. Did we just remember September 25th?
We had not. We were trying to get together a virtual meeting to go over the changes that we talked about at budget hearings and to get a review of our financial plan. Well, obviously, Mike Woodward being an important part of that. He cannot do that date, and so he came back with another date. I don't know if anyone has responded to him.
But September 25th at 1 p.m. Is that okay for the group? It's fine for you. You were just working it out.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, Sue was good, I was good. You good, Nation? Mr. Hall?
I'm good.
Okay, so we will solidify September 25th at 1 p.m. And then we do have November 6th at 6 p.m. a work session related to ISS giving us kind of a tutorial of what we want related to our capabilities at Workday. So if we want access and things we want to see. So I just ask that you send me whatever it is that you're looking for. I know I have some of your information. Just send that ahead of time so we can make sure to provide that.
What was that day?
That is November 6th, which is just before our meeting at 6 p.m. And then can we confirm conference room 1A, I assume, for that? I can check with
For
you.
the 11/6 meeting?
Yes.
And 6 p.m., that shouldn't be an issue.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Luke. And then finally, there had been some discussion, and I failed to bring this up before we had closed budget hearings. But from a council perspective, we have a part-time position currently in our budget, and I'm requesting that we motion to approve moving from a part-time to a full-time role and ultimately taking back that information to personnel so we can have it evaluated as far as however we want, an admin for council, whatever the title may be. So I would need a motion in order to do that and allow it to move forward to personnel to follow our procedure.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? And one other thing to add, we do obviously have money allocated. There will likely be an increase, but we'll have to ask for an additional appropriation once we get that information and it's approved. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. That is all I have, Madam Vice President.
I have one item. The Hamilton North Public Library has an opening, and that was advertised last month, announced last month that we were accepting applications. We received one application, and it was an E. Scott Miller, and I'm making a motion that our body appoints Mr. Miller to the Hamilton North Public Library.
So one thing that I will note is that is actually an item under new business.
Oh,
So if we, item E, 10E.
thank you.
No
You guys
problem.
are-
If you don't mind, if we just
Yeah.
delay on that.
We can do that. No, nothing else to report.
A
Thank
little
you.
quick, that was just one. We have a
There's
for
another.
both?
That's fine.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's a
okay.
reappointment for a renewal.
Yeah.
Highway, we did not meet.
Thank you. Finance?
We did have a meeting last week. Most of it was went over by Mike at our budget hearing introduction.
Thank you. Personnel?
We met several times, trying to pick up. most of which we covered in the budget meetings, but of note would be the cooperation from Hamilton County with Mike Thibodeau and giving us information that was really crucial to being able to compare salaries for corrections officers as well as our deputies.
Great. Major projects?
We did not meet, but we certainly talked about a number of those things in our budget hearings.
Yes, and we're on the books for September 17th, I believe.
Yep.
Is there anything under miscellaneous to be shared?
I'm going to go to a meeting of the working group for the judicial expansion tomorrow at 11.
Great. Anything further? Seeing none, we have nothing on unfinished, we have nothing in table. We'll move on to new business, approval of vendor claims.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 10B, an interlocal agreement between the City of Noblesville and Hamilton County Road Project.
So moved.
Is there any discussion?
Just real quick, this is for the 911 dispatch center. It's for the road that goes from Presley Boulevard up to the facility and then kind of goes around the southeast corner of the property in front. And then at that point in time, the city will take over building the road to the after our property line ends. And this was built into the guarantee max price. The city's, I believe, Steve, have they approved it on their end yet? Steve, what? Yes, the city has approved it. The commissioners have signed. The county council is the third to last body to sign. Their Board of Public Works, I think, is meeting next week to execute this. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 10C, ordinance 09-04-2024.a, an ordinance of the County Council of Hamilton County approving the lease agreement and the issuance of bonds related to the Judicial Center project and non-judicial center project. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Is there discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 10D, introduction and discussion of resolution CC 09-04-2024.01. Judge Brown.
Good evening, council.
Good evening.
All right, so we provided the judiciary, we provided you folks with what is a draft document of what we would want to submit to the legislature. There are still a few things we need to gather for this proposal to go to the legislature to ask for additional judges and magistrates. A couple things I want to highlight. One, it was brought to my attention that the county population is actually higher than the 347, that we are actually in the neighborhood of 371 to 377,000 people currently. The census was 347 in 2020. Also, I want to highlight on page 6 of the memo, when I'm referencing the number of cases for 2024, it had reflected an annualized amount of 27,690 cases for this year is what we anticipate. That number is actually low. We received our report through the cases filed through end of August earlier this morning. And so as of end of August, we had 18,792 cases filed. And if we annualize that, that's going to give us a total of 28,188 cases that should get filed in this calendar year, which compared to the previous year, I think was 24,000 cases last year. So that's a greater than 10% increases in the amount of cases filed this calendar year versus last year. Additionally, I wanted to make sure that the one question I have is in terms of how the council would like us to make this request to the legislature. And part of that reflects, it's Exhibit 4, which has to do with the additional personnel that would be needed. In my conversations privately with some of you, I've talked about it is questionable about what numbers of people we will need for the expansion. The layout of the expansion, I've been in some of the committee meetings with regards to that to see how the kind of the layout is, where judges are at and where bailiffs are at, et cetera. And traditionally, when we have added a court, there's a variety of positions that generally go along with that. You have a court reporter, you have a bailiff, you have a receptionist, you have an office manager. I think one of the things that some of us judges are looking at is, well, and then also there's traditionally there's 2 deputy prosecutors that are added every time we add a court. But I also know that the prosecutor's office, they ask you folks for people to deal with the cases they've got, and their request is not necessarily tied to whether or not we get another court or not. The prosecutor's office, they have cases they have to address. They're trying to get those needs addressed. And it's not married to whether or not you folks say, hey, next year next after that, we have a new actually elected judge. That's not part of this process. And what you're seeing with the request from the prosecutor's office is just a portion of what we are seeing in the courts on a day-to-day basis. Roughly 20 to 22% of my docket is major felony. And my colleagues, their dockets are fairly similar in terms of it's 20 to 25% of their docket is criminal caseload. So with the numbers you're seeing, the prosecutors talking about in terms of the amount of work they're having, their increases. And that increase for the number of personnel they need to deal with what the judges are dealing with 1 day a week. Multiply that number by 5 in terms of the amount of stuff that is happening in our county on a day-to-day basis. And the projections, I mean, I empathize with you folks in terms of you look at the population that we're expected to be at over 500,000 people in this county in the near future. I mean, there's a lot of problems. There's roads, there's police, there's, I mean, all kinds of things that are going to go with that. The courts are part of that process and trying to deal with all the increase in case filings. We have estimated in the presentation we've put together in this packet for the following 2 years after this year, not 15% increases in caseloads. Because, you know, the further you kind of go out and you're trying to crystal ball, the more apt you are to have an error. So even only putting like a 6 or 7% increase for 2025 and 2026, you're still looking at 31,000, 32,000 cases filed, which is 4,000 cases filed more than today. I was explaining to Commissioner Dillinger yesterday, the problem with a case isn't that it's filed today. There are some cases that get filed today we deal with very quickly. Like if I get a protection order petition, it's dealt with really promptly and it's handled within a matter of a day or two. There might be a hearing a couple weeks out and that case is done. Where these big cases, where the real work is the cases that are, the hearings are 10 months out, 12 months out, 18 months out, 24 months out. And all these things are just going to keep piling up. And so the amount of cases we have, yeah, we may be able to breathe today, but this is not sustainable a year or two from now because people are just be waiting and waiting to get court dates. And so, I mean, there is an absolute need there. And, you know, we know that we got to work with you folks in terms of getting this process going and we can't do it without you. And the fact that the building is, you know, being expanded out is wonderful. And I think it's a step as we all go forward together. So we think our request is reasonable. We believe we have the data that supports it. Our weighted caseload, what we've asked for is 4 more judges. That would put us at 17. If I look at where we at on our filings as of the end of August, we're rated for 17.7 judges. So even if the legislature gave us 4 more judges today, we're still short. And we know that we're not getting them today. This is just our opportunity to go to the state and say, look, this is what our need is. We've got the data that supports it. Do we think that we're going to get 4 judges? No. Would it be nice if we got them? Yes, but we don't control that. And so we just need to have our local officials on board with us as we all try to head forward in the same direction. And, you know, we may come up short when we go downtown, and that's okay. But it'll get us some breathing room, and then we'll have to go back through this process again 2 years from now. And we know that one of the big questions is going to be, well, where are you going to put these people at? Right? That's probably what some of your questions you would ask. It's a reasonable question. Well, if you have an elected judge, the way that our proposal is set up, the person wouldn't run for office until 26, so they're not taking the bench until 27. Okay, well, if it takes 2 years to get the building built, depending on when construction starts, and if there's some delays in there, could there be some time in there where we're all kind of bumping into each other for a period of time? Yeah. But it's better than having an empty space where you don't have the bodies to put in it. And if we have to wait another 2 years, then you're only delaying the time before we actually can get the people in there that we need. And if the growth continues the way it's looking, even when we get these people in 27, we're still short. We're going to be back coming to see, if we only get, say, 2 judges this time, I bet 2 years from now, we're still asking for 4 judges. And so, I mean, it's a problem of a growing county, and we truly appreciate all the support we get from you folks on a day-to-day basis. But if there's any questions you have about what was provided to you, we just need to have a resolution that says you folks are on board. We know that there are obviously budgetary constraints that are going to come with if we get any judges. We didn't think asking for 4 judges was appropriate. We think having a blend is important between having 2 judges and 2 magistrates. But again, we don't even know what we're going to get from the legislature. So if they give us, say, 1 elected and 1 magistrate, well, that would chop what you see here in half. And plus, if you take it in, and the question, and again, I come back to, whether or not, like, we should be including as far as a judicial, like a cost to the judiciary in terms of this proposal that we're making to the legislature. Are we wanting to have, are you folks wanting us to have, for example, the order book clerks and the prosecutors and paralegals associated with the prosecutor's office in this ask of the folks downtown or not? If you want it in there, I'll leave it in there. If you don't want me to have that in there, we will take it out. We're flexible in that regards, but we want input from you guys.
Are they paying for it?
For which?
Any of it?
They pay for the judge and they pay for the magistrate.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's,
The rest of it's up to us, and we're open for business every month.
amen.
Just curious, you say that you don't want to have empty space not being used. The day we open, I hope we still have some space open so that we can absorb the future growth. I know that you're meeting with our facilities team and the design. Is that being accommodated to the judge's expectations?
I think that the committee with structure point, Judge Block is here today as is Judge Najjar, and we've seen the plans. We've also been participating with that committee. I think they've been super responsive in terms of the questions we've had and whatever design changes need to be implemented. I think one thing that we really liked about it was the fact that I think part of the expanded courtrooms would be with a secure elevator, which gives us a few more options for those kind of hearings, and part of it wouldn't have it, but we don't have to have a secure elevator for every case. And I think that some people have said, well, are you guys trying to adopt the Marion County model? No, that is not what we're trying to do. But we acknowledge that you still I don't need a big giant courtroom for every hearing. Like, I had a hearing this week, for example, it was yesterday, and it was a protective order hearing, which usually I have a handful of people, and I swear 20 people came from this lady's neighborhood to be in support of them, and they all were in the gallery, and it was kind of like, kind of an old conventional wedding where everyone sits on one side of the aisle, and clearly you know who was with who. But so sometimes you need the extra space. But for some hearings, I don't need that big of a space. And I think that the idea that you can have a right-sized courtroom for right-sized matters is a good way to approach things. And I think Marion County's done a good job of that. I think what we hear from as judges and from the lawyers is the thing that people don't like about Marion County's setup is how it's kind of impersonal. And so, like Mark Hall, he went on a tour with us down there a couple weeks ago. And, and they kind of showed us where different things were at. And, so part of the idea was, well, okay, so if you come up the elevator and you get off and there's, say, a receptionist, okay? Well, do you have to have a receptionist seat at each court? Or could you just have, say, 2 receptionists on each floor by the elevators? And so that way because what happens is when people want to figure out where to go when they get off the elevator, they don't know where their hearing is, right? So they'll go to Judge Kukin's court, or they'll go to Judge Campbell's court, or they'll go to Judge Hughes, or they'll go to Judge Block's court staff and go, where do I go? And it may be their courtroom, but it may be down the hall, and they try to get them navigating. And Marion County, they've got these boards that are helpful, and put your name in, it'll tell you where your hearing is. That's kind of cool. But I think that having some receptionist locations near where people are coming onto those floors, and I think the idea of the design was you'd have all the court stuff on that second and third floor. We got receptionists right there, they can point people where to go. Maybe we save a little bit on staffing there.
Well, that's where I was going to go with this. I mean, I know a little bit of why they have all those individual ones. I'm not going to go into this in a public meeting, but I was involved early on in that process in Marion County. But as far as for what we have, I think that kind of blends into the conversation about the prosecuting attorneys. That how does this new plan that's going to be rolled out when the new building is open, how is our staffing projections and how we're building the model for how you are supported, as well as how the prosecutors are going to be filling in the blanks to move these cases through? How is that being adhered to within the design? And I guess maybe as we're looking at staffing, obviously you have what you have today, but in 2 years from now, that's where my focus has to be as a counselor is are we planning for that when this new building opens?
And I would agree with you, and I think my colleagues would as well. In terms of as we look at that space, I think we need to, with people being in different areas. Like I had a conversation with Kathy Richardson yesterday, and one thing she'd comment on was she's like, well, maybe we could have a few less clerks if there was more consistency with each of the courts. Well, right now we're all siloed.
Yeah.
So, you've got, 8 judges, and there's going to be some overlap, but there's also sometimes you end up with like 8 different ways of doing things.
We've talked about having some outside organizational sort of review with a third party for some positions and opportunities within the county. Is that something you guys would welcome if we bring that on board?
Absolutely. Absolutely, I think we would. And I mean, because I think it's kind of like, we added virtual hearings. That was a monumental change in the courts. Like, when I was in law school, nobody was thinking about that. Like, if you told me that was going to be, TV was like the Judge Wapner. That was what we saw, right? Or Judge Judy or whatnot. And so now you've got, like, court hearings all the time happening on Zoom and WebEx and different platforms. It enables us to do our job in a different way. Well, I think looking back when I retired a couple decades from now, that's going to be something I'm going to look back on and be like, wow, that was kind of crazy. I think this also is kind of dovetails into that in terms of we're changing in urban counties. I don't think you have much of a choice. You have finite amount of space, finite resources, and you're trying to be more efficient with what you have. I don't see how you can move this forward by always doing what you've always done. I think that we're in the same boat with you. I think that the idea of trying to re-examine how we do business and is there ways we can find some efficiencies, we're already in the process of thinking about that. And I think as we move forward and we start, as all these designs kind of lock in, I think that'll help us in terms of saying, okay, what can we do? Because what will happen is you're going to have like a bunch of schedulers in an area, and if they're all kind of together, they're all going to be talking to, oh, how do you do this? How do you do that? Because we have found even when Judge Bardock retired, we all were taking turns. All the judges, we were taking turns taking care of her docket each week in terms of all the work, the regular queue work that comes through on a day-to-day basis. And her staff was like, well, we didn't know you could do it that way. No, you can do those that way? Well, yeah. And so one of the problems is we're trying to get our staffs to talk to each other more to see what other things, what everybody does a little bit different, everybody does a little bit better, some things better, some things worse. Let's try to find some improvements there.
That's great. Thank you.
So,
Other comments? Seeing none, I do need a motion for the resolution.
Motion. Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
thank you all.
Next item, 10E, Library Board appointments for Hamilton East and Hamilton North.
We have one application for Hamilton North. It's Mr. E. Scott Miller.
What we're going to do,
Wanna
it
make-
together, I guess.
Oh, we can? And the other, the other motion, or the other applicant is Beth Scheller, which is a renewal of her current position of the Hamilton East Public Library.
So may I have a second for her motion?
So I would second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 11, additional appropriations, reductions, and transfers. At this time, I'll open the public hearing concerning additional appropriations. Fund 1000, we have a few requests. The first is council request to resolve for October additional in the amount of $2,110.
Yeah, I'll take that. Several months ago, I talked to you about, I was interested in getting involved with Wreaths Across America, and the project I had in mind is that we would, it's already an organization, and they put wreaths on veterans' graves. And so Diana Lynch has been working with, go
Can I
ahead.
have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
For discussion, thank you. Okay.
And she's been working with me and got all the details. How many are we getting, and what does it cost, Diane?
It's $17 a piece, and we're getting 124.
And our idea was we were going to do the one closest to the courthouse, which is Riverside Cemetery.
And I got approval from the city for that.
Okay, we've got a map, and so what we need is $2,110. What about the timing? I was late getting this in, so this will actually be October.
That'll be fine.
That's not a problem?
Nope.
We do have an appropriation available. This would replace what you use, but there is
Okay.
appropriation there.
Is that,
Is there any
You
other
guys understand
discussion
what-
or
I only have,
questions?
the only question I'd have, and I'm very supportive of this, is that while that's just the one area of the county, I'd love to see this program expand to other parts of the county and getting the other cities to get engaged.
I was hopeful, we are hopeful that we do this, maybe we get a little press or whatnot, and it might encourage other communities to get involved with it.
I have it set up through Buildings and Grounds that these are going to be delivered out at the jail complex in a trailer. And I have currently 6 volunteers, you're the 6th. I need 6 more, I need at least 12 people. Because we will need to put these on the graves.
What day?
I don't have a date yet,
we
that's
don't-
not
they're gonna
determined.
deli-
It's going to be in December.
Yeah, they're gonna deliver them to us.
Okay.
We're gonna transfer them
Perfect.
to a county vehicle trailer, take them to the cemetery. When we know when we get them, then we'll put out a memo.
Yeah, that's great. You can have more, I assume, than 12, if
Yes,
you right?
yes, the more the merrier,
Perfect.
and the better.
Okay, any other comments or discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 2, ISS, an additional 100,000. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? It's around workday support and for Cognizant. It's additional. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. EMA transfer in the amount of $8,190.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 4, prosecutor 144 amendment.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Sheriff with 2 144 amendments.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item A6, highway transfer in the amount of $700,000.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. 1023 Airport Authority requesting $2,657,485.75. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Is there discussion? I know Brad has talked
Will
about
you
it.
Yeah,
brief
I
us
kind of
on
run it
this?
down for them a little bit the last couple of days. Sam, give us the highlights.
Sure, yeah. So as you guys are aware, our funds are non-reverting. So essentially, we have a bunch of cash in the bank, and we'd like to go ahead and cash out a portion of that to put towards a couple of current and upcoming projects. We have a list of about 4 projects that the airport needs to get done over the next, we'll say, 20 to 30 months or so. And this is going to help us jumpstart those projects. So we're going to take a lot of this cash that's in the bank and immediately put it to good use.
Yeah, like I was telling you, we've got a couple of vendors that want to build some hangars, but we need ramp space and taxi space to allow them to build it. The airport authority has this money sitting there. They'd use it up front to get the project started quicker than if we wait for FAA reimbursement. 2/3 of it will get reimbursed, won't it, Sam?
Yes, yeah, a large portion of it will be reimbursed. So right now we're asking for 2.6 million out of our, I think it was 2.9 is what the document says here. But we expect at the end of the day to have about 2.1 still sitting in our account after we get reimbursements back. So a lot of it will be reimbursed.
Yeah.
Anything further? Questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank
Item
you.
C, the motor vehicle highway restricted transfer in the amount of $248,350.66.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Parks and Recreations requesting $32,000.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's the right way, isn't it, Chris?
Yeah.
You didn't even get to the microphone.
Got one more too.
Okay,
Guardian ad litem requesting $95,000.
so move.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Parks and Rec 144 amendment.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
There you go.
1222 Communications 144 amendment. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 4905, Digital Orthophotography Fund requesting $67,000.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I was just gonna say good job on saying that.
Orthophotography.
Nailed it.
Next, we'll move on to grant appropriation transfers and reductions.
Madam President, motion to combine number 1, A, B, C, and D, and number 2, A.
So
Second.
moved. I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We have a motion to approve those items.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
At this time, I will close the public hearing and move on to announcements. John, on behalf of the sheriff, do you have anything for us?
No, I just want to say thank you to the Personnel Committee and the 3 counselors that helped work on that for 2025 salary, so thank you.
Council attorney. Madam Auditor? Thank you, council, for a very productive 48 hours and sessions. And this is actually will be your last, this is your official last budget hearing, so we
Yes, it is.
appreciate you
Wow.
and thank you for all you.
Yes.
Thank you for all you've done, appreciate it.
Don, will you or should I get Amy to send me an email on that meeting we just had?
I'm working on
Ken,
sending
that's-
something out.
Yeah, Ken was having some issues, but he was sending.
Hey,
It's in your
It's
junk
It's in your
mail.
junk mail right now.
How about a carrier pigeon? Can
Yeah,
I smoke signal?
yeah.
How about that?
I'll send you a telegram.
Somebody send me an
I'll make sure you
email.
have it.
Thank you.
Anything further? Thank you, adjourn.